Luka Modric is without a doubt one of the best midfielders of our generation and even amongst all the greatest to have ever played the game. But at nearly 37 years old, Modric is doing something we've never really seen before from other all-time greats like him. And this year especially, he has been phenomenal in both club and country. A different breed of midfielder that we could only see once in a few generations. And I would personally place him among the top 5 greatest midfielders of all time. And some of you might not agree, but regardless, a vast majority of people would have Modric at the very least within these an elite company alongside names like Zidane, Xavi, Iniesta, Cruyff, Pirlo, and many more. But let's look at the main aspects that really sets Luka Modric apart from all those household names and show why he is truly built different and in a class of his own. So today we're gonna look at how incredible Luka Modric has been and why he is truly built different and doing things that no other midfielder has ever done before. Number 1. Longevity. It's no secret that football is a very physically draining sport. You have to consistently be on the move throughout the pitch, which oftentimes involves having to make quick bursts of sprints within just a few minutes apart. So historically, the sport has been more favorable towards younger athletes with fresher legs in their prime of their physical abilities. Midfielders especially have to be constantly on the move, even more so when they're defensive midfielders. Defensive midfielders often have to slide and make tackles, and it definitely doesn't get easier with age. Luka Modric has stood above many all-time great midfielders like him in this category. Let's just look at some who many consider to be all-time great midfielders. Firstly, we have Xavi, without a doubt one of the best midfielders of all time and one of, if not the greatest passer we've ever seen. Sure, Xavi wasn't the most seen and definitely wasn't making full speed sprints most of the time, but despite that, by the time he left Barcelona in 2015, he was well past his prime. At just 35 years old, Xavi was playing in the Middle East for a much less competitive and well-known league in Qatar. Andres Iniesta, on the other hand, was a much more athletic midfielder than Xavi, often involved in the attack and receiving a lot of contact from defenders, especially with his tight dribbling and having to sprint more to continue the attack, as he was especially dangerous as a playmaker near the box. So naturally, it would make sense that his legs would be much more strained and take much more of a beating than that of Xavi's. But by the time he left Barcelona in 2018, he was only 34 years old and moving on to play in Japan, a more elite league than Qatar, but definitely not a top 5 league at all. While he still did have that amazing dribbling and touch, his fitness was far from his prime. Andrea Pirlo, arguably the greatest Italian midfielder of all time, and like Xavi and Iniesta, one of the very few in his position to win multiple Champions League trophies and a World Cup, played a much more conservative style of football. His passing and vision was amazing, and many people, especially these days, often forget just how great of a footballer he was. And of the latter two mentioned, he spent a longer time in a top league. By the time he left Juventus to move on to play for the MLS back in 2015, he was 36 years old. And even then, he was way past his prime, not really playing as big of a playmaking role as he once did. And amongst Xavi and Iniesta, I'd argue that Pirlo was able to stay in better fitness for a little longer because of his reserved playstyle. And Zinedine Zidane, without a doubt, was one of the few players in history, let alone midfielders, who could single-handedly carry his team to victory. Now, of course, Zidane played a much more physical style of football, so naturally his body couldn't hold out for that long. By the start of his final season for Real Madrid, he was only 33 years old, definitely ending his career much younger than the previous mentioned midfielders. But right before his retirement, we saw Zidane absolutely dominate the World Cup and carry France on his back all the way to the World Cup final. One of the best performances we've ever seen from a player. At the age of 34, it seemed like Zidane was still in his prime. He could have played at a high level in a top league for a year or two more, but we'll never really know since he chose to hang his boots up. Now let's look at Modric. As of the making of this video, Modric is only a few months away from being 37 years old, older than any of the other midfielders I previously mentioned, and is still playing like he's in his prime. And Modric is definitely putting his body under a lot of stress. At the age of 36, we still see Modric making full speed sprints and sliding on the ground to make tackles. Even then, he still makes runs and can make passes as beautifully as ever. By his age now, everyone else I mentioned basically either played for a quote-unquote retirement league or was retired. And still, at this age, Modric remains a central figure in his club's success, helping Real Madrid once more win the Champions League title, making it the 5th in Modric's trophy case. And like Zidane, we've seen Modric with an absolutely amazing World Cup performance. At 33 years old, just a few months younger than Zidane was, Modric helped his country reach the 2018 World Cup final. Although I don't think Modric carried his country nearly as much as Zidane did, he was definitely the best player in his country and overall in the tournament, being named the best player in the tournament just like Zidane was back in 2006. And just recently in the Nations League, Modric is continuing to put on masterful performances against nations like France at nearly 37 years old. This level of consistency and longevity from an all-time great midfielder has never been seen before. And for that, Luka Modric is indeed something special. Number 2. Hardships. At the age of 6, Modric was a victim of war. In 1991, during Croatia's war for independence, Serbian militia attacked his home village. Unfortunately, his paternal grandfather was a victim of senseless violence and died. Modric and his family were forced to flee from home as refugees of war. He stayed at a local hotel with no easy access to electricity or running water as well. In a hotel parking lot, Modric would play with a punctured football to pass the time with the sounds of gunfire and grenades going off in the distance. A horrific environment for anyone, let alone a 6-year-old boy, to witness. It was at that time when he fell in love with the game of football. We lived in a hotel for many years as we struggled financially, but I always loved football. I remembered my first shin pads had the Brazilian Ronaldo on them and I loved them. The war made me stronger. It was a very different time for me and my family. I don't want to drag that with me forever, but I don't want to ever forget about it either. That was until Croatian club Dinamo Zagreb noticed the young boy's skill and determination and gave him a chance. This opportunity would eventually lead him to Tottenham and then Real Madrid, where he's become a household name and a legend of the game. In comparison, Xavi, Iniesta, and Pirlo were young prodigies that were noticed early on and have been professionally raised and sheltered as footballers in club academies for countries at peace. To see how a kid from a war-torn nation can make it in football just goes to show you how strong Modric is as a person, but at the same time shows you the tragedies of war and conflict, and the countless lives who weren't as lucky as him to find shelter and eventually find success. This is the foundation for Modric and his tough attitude, unrelenting work ethic, and competitive spirit that isn't afraid to take on any challenge. Truly built different. Number 3. Accolades. When you look at some of the greatest midfielders of all time, there's no doubt that accolades are always in the conversation of who's better than who, and it's just how it is. And at the individual level, not many midfielders have had the accolades that Luka Modric has. Xavi, Iniesta, and Pirlo are world champions of their countries and have shown millions of fans just how beautiful the game of football can be. However, despite that, they've never been the best players of those World Cup tournaments. While Modric might not have won the World Cup with Croatia, again, he was named the best player of the tournament, an accolade that is historically given to more attacking positions and goal scorers rather than defensive midfielders. Another thing that he has that many don't is the coveted golden ball. As great as Xavi and Iniesta were, they unfortunately have never won the Ballon d'Or. They came very close to winning it a few times, and many believe they deserved at least one each. But as history would have it, they came just a bit shy of winning the award. Andrea Pirlo himself has never been placed in the top 3 of Ballon d'Or voting at all. But in 2018, and quite controversially, Modric finished just a few votes ahead of Cristiano Ronaldo to win the Ballon d'Or. Now, many believe this was very unfair because if Modric won one, Xavi and Iniesta certainly should have won one as well. Personally, it's my opinion that while Modric is one of the top 5 midfielders in history, he didn't deserve the award over Cristiano Ronaldo in 2018, who had his 4th best season. Of course, again, there are many others who thought he did deserve it for being amazing in the World Cup, where most voters for the award base their entire year on. But I've already made a controversial video on that. Regardless of all our opinions opinions though, Modric still won the award, further differentiating him from many of the great midfielders who have come just short but failed to win the Golden Ball. In fact, at this very moment, there are legitimate cases for Modric to be named one of the best midfielders in the world again, even at his age, which just further proves how special of a player he is. But that's gonna do it for me today, guys. Where do you rank Luka Modric in your all-time list of midfielders? Let me know what you think in the comments below, or if you have any other video suggestions on what I should make next. If you enjoyed, please leave a like to help support this channel out with the algorithm and show some love, and subscribe for more weekly videos like this. Thank you to everyone who continues to support and watch my videos, and I'll see you in the next one.